After 5 seasons, we have finally qualified for the Champions League at Union Berlin, giving us our toughest season yet. So we need to upgrade the club, starting off with the training facilities, which the board agreed with. I also improved the coaching staff, giving us some of the greatest footballing minds in the Bundesliga. And speaking of the Bundesliga, we are finally rising up in the commercial income table in the league as well. However, we are still getting these long-term injuries, and I really don't know how to prevent them. Somebody actually told me in the comments that you can download something, probably from Steam Workshop, where it implements all the injuries by like minus 50%, so you should get half the amount of injuries as what you are usually getting if you're finding there are a lot of injuries. Just giving you a heads up and a tip if you want to use it. Last season though, Manchester City won the Champions League, and 2 clubs came in and matched Terem Moffi's £30 million release clause, and he rejected Frankfurt. And he decided to reject a new contract from us and move to Cologne, a team, remember, that we bumped out of the top 4 into Europa League.
Can't believe it!
I also started to look at players to upgrade on what we have, like Satriano, who, as you can see, is clearly better than Jordan Siebatcheu. But he wanted far too high of wages, so let's take a look and see who I brought in instead. And as we mentioned at the end of the last episode, we have signed Tyler Adams on a free transfer from Leeds United, the USA international. He has 92 caps as well. I love his energy, I love the fact that he can bomb around the pitch, he gets forward whenever possible, his mental attributes are insane, and of course he can play in a number of different positions and player roles. Speaking of free transfers, I have also signed Mile Sviljar, the backup goalkeeper, seeing as we just lost ours at the end of his contract. He's only 28, so he's going to be good for a long time, and he's quite decent as well, and he has agreed to be a backup, which is the most important thing. We picked him up from Roma. My scouts then recommended me a 23-year-old right back, and I was like, I don't think I need a right back, until I seen how good he was and how cheap he is. This is William Mikkel Brenkes, which I probably have got wrong. As I mentioned, he's 23 years of age, and I think he is really good, especially for the Bundesliga and the fact that we're going to be going into Champions League football. So I like his attributes. He still has some room to grow. He can play further up the pitch if possible, and we only picked him up for 9.25 million after playing a fair amount of seasons in the Bundesliga, doing quite well. And in 3 games, he's already got himself a goal and an assist and a player of the match. That's a bargain. When we received the first round of the cup draw, I thought we had been pranked when I saw FC Bayern, but apparently they like the name and a very similar badge, just in blue. And we punished them for impersonation 6-0, whilst also giving new signing Vitor Roque some confidence moving to a new country, when he picked up a lovely brace to kick off his career in Berlin. And I thought we were going to kick off the Bundesliga with a win when Diamonde scored, but Werder Bremen got a late equaliser from this free kick. We then took a home defeat to Cologne 4-3, but Terem Moffi, the £30 million new striker, was sat on the bench and didn't even feature. How much money do Cologne have if they can just put a player worth that much just sat on the bench? We finally got our first win of the Bundesliga in a 2-0 win against Eintracht Frankfurt, where both of our new signings got the goals in a solid performance. We are still rocking the same tactic that we did last season with, however, this lineup, which is the last time that you will see this team, because Chelsea have activated the release clause of Aseko Nkili right before the transfer window closes. Cheers. And of course, the transfer went through once the window shut, meaning we couldn't even sign a replacement. Well, we've got to look ahead and focus on our Champions League fixtures, which we have been given now a couple of tasty matches, including hosting PSG and a trip to Stamford Bridge. Before we faced Apoel though, we had to rescue a point against Stuttgart after being 2 goals down very late through Sekou Koita's goals in the 83rd and 91st minute. Our first game of the Champions League, and Apoel took the lead through very poor goalkeeping from Kovacevic. New Brazilian striker Vitor Roque leveled things up almost immediately with a very composed finish, before Marjanovic turned it on to curl one into the corner. But second half was very tight, and we held on into the 89th minute when Uwe Jan finally scored our third to secure our first Champions League win. Then we went and lost to Dusseldorf. But it's time to show some appreciation for our Serbian new-gen Marjanovic, because we faced Bayern Munich next, who scored early through a penalty, and that's when Marjanovic became unplayable. First bringing down the loose ball and leaving his man for Dust to fire in the equaliser. He played a wayward pass in the second half that Jordan Siebatcheu eventually won back to score a second, and then Marjanovic once again started to dance around the defenders and pop in a third of the game. Bayern pulled one back, but we held on and Marjanovic wins man of the match. We replicated the same scoreline next in the Champions League trip to Villarreal. Our league form has been bad, especially considering one of our 2 wins was against Bayern Munich. You'd think we'd be a little higher in the league. No complaints in the Champions League though, 2 from 2, but we are back to meeting tough opponents in the second round of the DFB Pokal. Daddy misses you, beautiful. Just a 1 goal in the only Champions League game of October when Rafael Leao destroyed us down the wing and cut it back for Benjamin Sesko to give PSG the win. What an outrageous team they have, by the way. Our quest to win back the DFB Pokal is on track when we beat Bayer Leverkusen 3-2, starting with this Vitor Roque's 3rd minute goal. Diamonde's 65th minute penalty miss was the difference in 2 points extra against a tough Freiburg team who came back from 2 goals behind to level 2-2. Luckily, this month's seen another 2 wins against Hamburg in a 3-0 win and Leipzig, a team battling for a similar position to us, 4-2. Come on, man! That's too easy! Well, then we did get slapped up by Dortmund, but I don't think we'll talk about that one. Oh no! Oh no! And our trip to Stamford Bridge is next. And strap yourself in because what a game this was. Chelsea opened the scoring when they worked a throw in into the box and Kai Havertz controlled the pass well, turned and shot into the bottom corner. They played the ball down the right hand side again where Havertz was put through and he made no mistake, doubling the lead. Just 3 minutes later though, Thorsby retrieved the ball, found Vitor Roque whose snapshot found the net, 2-1. But moments after half time, Cancellieri gave the ball away and Darwin Nunez made it 3-1. We answered back again when Vitor Roque got his 2nd of the match, 3-2. But literally the next minute the 2-goal advantage was restored when Nunez also got his 2nd of the match. So with 3 players racing to the match ball, it was Vitor Roque who made sure the ball was coming home with him when he made it 4-3. But it wasn't over and the Serbian wonder kid Marjanovic pushed the ball into space and had a deadly finish to equalise in the 88th minute. We scored 4 in the other Champions League game this month against Besiktas, but we also kept the clean sheet. Unfortunately, our league form wasn't great with 2 losses and a bad loss at that against Leverkusen, a draw to Hoffenheim and our only win against Wolfsburg. It was our 2 star players again who provided the goals and it seemed like they are kind of carrying us at the minute. Marjanovic has been exceptional and Vitor Roque just seems to have adapted really well to that Teremoffi position and was a great replacement for half of the price. He even got the only goal of the game against Sporting in the Champions League, which remarkably sits us in the top 8 with 2 games to play. December in the league seen us draw 0-0 to Augsburg, defeat Mainz 2-1 with goals from Koita and Diamonde, and comfortably walk past Greuther Fürth 3-0 with 2 goals from Marjanovic. January and we can finally bring in a replacement midfielder in Christian Aslani for 17 million. A quality midfielder who's very composed on the ball and likes to dictate the tempo. My scouts also found this guy who had a release clause for £1.4 million. But the biggest bargain was yet to come. Guess who was on the transfer list? None other than Youssoufa Moukoko at Dortmund for £5 million. There was no way I could miss out on that. I know he hasn't played much, so his development has been stalled, but he's still only 23 and we can definitely use him. I even created a tactic to use 3 strikers to fit them all in for the first game against Werder Bremen. And in that game we won 4-2 with Moukoko scoring our 4th, using his pace to mark the first goal in his Union Berlin career. And he just kept scoring. He scored the opening goal in the cup win against Mainz in off the post. And he volleyed in the opener against Cologne. They did equalise after, but the 3 points was won emphatically when Uwe Jan hit this.
Oh my God!
By the way, Cologne's keeper is just 20 years old and is probably one of the best in the world. I did try and sign him when they did, but he was at Hertha Berlin, so he wasn't interested in joining forces with us. And after reverting back to the 4-4-2 for this massive away win against Porto, Moukoko was back scoring in the frost against Frankfurt, where Siebatcheu was banging in a hat-trick and an assist. And although those lads are scoring majority of the goals, it's Marjanovic for me who has been destroying teams with his quality. We currently sit in 4th, but have played a game more than the team on the same points around us, and with 1 Champions League game we could skip the playoff round here and go straight to the round of 16 with a good result against Spurs. But unfortunately, Richarlison gave Spurs the lead on the 2nd minute. However, unfortunately for my Spurs supporting dad, Jordan Siebatcheu scored from a back post cross. And Marjanovic smashed in another fantastic free kick and they gifted us a 3rd to secure the win with terrible defending from Ampadu.
Oh, you're joking.
Finishing 7th with that record is amazing and I could not be prouder. Although that went out the window when we got smashed up by Stuttgart 6-2 in the next match. Thankfully though, we beat our bogey team Dusseldorf next in a hat-trick for young Youssoufa Moukoko. What a start this man is having in the red and white stripes of Berlin. Another 3 goals and a man of the match performance, taking his goal tally to 7 in 5 games. And the next 2 games is only Bayern Munich and Dortmund in the cup. So imagine the smile on my face when Youssoufa Moukoko was played through and finished in the 3rd minute of the match. It wasn't just my smile that was growing either when Narania cut it back and Moukoko doubled our lead. And if you think I meant anything other than the scoreline doubling, then you need to get your mind out of the gutter. Unfortunately, right after halftime, Serge Gnabry pulled one back in Munich. And then to crush our hearts, they scored a second, and the game finished on a Desmond Tutu. We were also knocked out the DFB Pokal, but at least Youssoufa Moukoko scored against his old club. And we found out that once again it's Newcastle who was our opponents in Europe. The away leg was lost 1-0 and Joe Willock scored deep into the second half. And our journey in the Champions League came to an abrupt end when we could only draw the second leg 1-1. So now it's just about qualifying for the Champions League next season by finishing in the top 4. So this win against Hamburg was crucial with Youssoufa Moukoko scoring the only goal. But even better when Vitor Roque put us ahead just after 3 minutes against Dortmund. It didn't take long for them to score themselves though, or even longer for Dalot to put them ahead. But that man Marjanovic pulled it back to 2-2, and it was the £1.4 million signing Morek who bagged the winner against top of the league Dortmund. And we followed that up with a 2-1 win against Leipzig when Jordan Sierbatcheu scored the winner in the 95th minute. We then drew against Leverkusen and lost 2-1 to Hoffenheim and Gladbach. And we then ended the month with a win over Wolfsburg in the 92nd minute winner from Youssoufa Moukoko. And with 3 games to go, we are just 4 points behind Leipzig in 4th. We kept the pressure on when we beat Mainz 1-0 through Marjanovic. And Leipzig lost 2-0 to Dusseldorf, putting us just 1 point behind. And while we were beating already relegated Greuther Fürth, Leipzig and Freiburg were losing to Dortmund and Bayern. So on the final day, we were going into the game in the Champions League spots, but could drop all the way out of all of the European spots completely down in 8th place. Not only that, but our game also played a big part in the relegation scrap, as our opponents Augsburg could go down if Frankfurt won against Wolfsburg with a high enough goal difference and we beat them. It was our day to shine when we prevailed against Augsburg 3-1 with goals coming from 2 January signings Aslani and Youssoufa Moukoko, finished off by Abdi who picked up the 3rd. We know we were guaranteeing ourselves Champions League football. Or so we thought. No, I'm just kidding. We actually finished in 3rd place on goal difference. And speaking of goal difference, Augsburg survived only by 2 goals themselves. But it was once again another Bayern Munich league win. This is really depressing. Although Marjanovic saying he wants to move clubs to be with better players is even more depressing. Luckily though, he does have 4 years left on his contract and a release clause of 96 million. If the next episode is out, you can click it on the screen to watch right now. If not, we know we have £24 million to spend next year, and that sucks.